Larry Anglisano, Aviation Consumer Magazine, with my counterpart over at sister publication KITPLANES magazine, Marc Cook. Marc, you know, we've been talking about the choke supply chain, seems like forever now, but so we come to AirVenture 2022 expecting a supply chain issue, and sure enough, I think we got what we were thinking we would get.
Well, definitely what we've seen talking to people here and actually talking to consumers and pilots here really mirrors what we've been hearing for the last year and a half industry-wide. We've had shortages of critical components, we've had a slowdown in R&D. A lot of things have been influenced by the lack of parts coming in, but also really by the lack of the ability to get people to work in certain shops. We'll come back to that in a little bit, but we definitely have seen it be impactful for the consumer and cause delays in a lot of projects.
You know, and the problem is pretty widespread. It doesn't matter if it's avionics, if it's engines, if it's aircraft or headsets. Everybody pretty much has the same story. And the takeaway is, number one, there's a lot of uncertainty. Nobody knows what's going to happen 6 months, 3 months, a year down the road. But everybody says the same thing, is if you're serious about buying in the market, you need to buy sooner than later.
A lot of things we've seen talking to representatives from the companies is they're certainly critically aware of the situation going on, but they are taking steps to alleviate it. In some cases, it's finding new suppliers, it's finding new sources for certain components. It's in a lot of ways, it's also looking for multiple suppliers for critical components. So that's easier said than done, especially when you're talking about engines. Sometimes there's one manufacturer for a critical part. We're also seeing is a big change toward redesigning product and taking this opportunity to improve features, to upgrade the product because they can't get the parts for the old ones. So this is a good opportunity to say, hey, let's go and update what we've got. We're going to make it better for the consumer, but we're also going to partly solve our supply chain problem.
You know, in looking at avionics upgrades, whether you're building an airplane or having your certified airplane retrofitted, or even having your kit plane retrofitted by an avionics shop, you're faced with problems on both sides. If you're building an airplane, you're thinking about supply. You're thinking about installing some of these avionics components before you close up the airframe. While you've got things accessed, I need this component now because I got to close this up. Well, it's not as easy as it used to be. On the avionics shop front, you've got the problem of scheduling the airplane, and once you get the airplane scheduled, which is probably going to be a pretty sizable delay, now you've got to worry about the shop actually sourcing the components for when the airplane gets to the floor. It's not easy all around.
It's always been a bit of game of Tetris, you know, trying to get all the pieces back together in the right place at the right time. And it definitely is more complicated now. What we're seeing on the home build side is a lot of the OEMs are doing actually fairly well in terms of kit manufacturing, especially those that have control of the supply chain down to the raw materials. We're seeing a lot more companies bring products in-house and bring capabilities in-house where they may have outsourced anodizing or certain machining operations. They're investing in their own companies to bring that in and have more control, and when you get more control, you have more flexibility. I heard an interesting story from George Happ over at Matco. They use, for their brakes, then the master cylinders, they actually have a custom extrusion made. Well, the extrusion went from being a couple of week lead time to 6 weeks and then 9 weeks, and then we don't know when we can get it to you. So what he did was take all the ones he had for the certified stuff, set it aside. For the experimentals, he happened to have a 4-axis CNC where he could make them basically from scratch for a short period of time. So you have to kind of innovate when you really have these problems.
So one thing we did at the show here is we decided to go to some of these manufacturers to get their take. What are they seeing? What's their advice? And if they had a crystal ball, what does it look like? And here's what we heard.
About 9 months ago, we'd always used Mitsubishi displays, and we got notified that Mitsubishi was getting out of the LCD business. So that was really what made us look for a new LCD, and honestly, the old Mitsubishi was getting kind of aged. So the new ones are brighter, they just look better. We actually took the time to have custom cover glass made, so the touch screen is custom. It was all built to our specs, so the logo's actually put on it, and we could flush mount it then, so it made it more compact. We also took a lot of weight out of it. Our screens are now a pound lighter, The rear case is shorter and smoother. The other thing we did is we used to have a joystick. Touchscreens have gotten so good and everybody's used to their iPad or their phone. We found most people didn't need a joystick anymore. So we got rid of that and we actually put in this new dual encoder, concentric encoders. So it makes it much easier to move around, to tune radios. It's a much better interface using that. So we upgraded that at the same time.
Like this is a global supply chain challenges, not only continental. This is spread to all the industries, all the countries. So we in Continental, we did a very good job. It's not only just finding a short-term solution, we are implement a lot of long-term solutions, such as including from the people, which is we rebuild the team, we adding a lot of good talents to leading the effort. So that's why, while the challenge is getting worse, but our deliveries are getting better, and our lead times getting better now. So I just want to make sure we do it from fundamental, the structure, and build a system to start with it. And externally, we are working very hard with the vendors to set up the LTA and also the other practical solutions.
Here at Bose, we've been blessed really by the increased demand over the last 2 years. COVID has been very kind to us. We've seen an influx of customers and demand has never been higher. At the same time, we've had pretty significant supply chain challenges. Fortunately, the power of Bose, the size of Bose has helped us tremendously in terms of having leverage with many of our vendors, and that's been a benefit to us. But it's really the combination of really incredible demand and some challenges on the supply chain side has really caused us to see back orders in 4, 6 weeks, sometimes 10 weeks, depending on the version of our headset. And I don't think many people realize that Bose has up to 50 different SKUs with different connectors, different microphones, different cables. That complicates that. Just the variety of product has definitely made some SKUs much harder to find. We're doing a really good job though. We're meeting a lot of that demand within 4 to 6 weeks. And here at the show, we're excited to see just continued increased demand. But you as a consumer, we've seen a lot of people out there being very patient, very understanding, and the good advice that we would give to people is make sure that you give a lot of lead time, not just for repairs and parts, but also for a new product that you might anticipate wanting to put on the shelf at Christmas or our birthday. I would say order early.
One of the key issues that we're facing here in aviation, and this is pretty much universal, is supply chain. And because we're building things with chip components and chip components that are at a high level of reliability and meet higher temperature ratings than the normal, we get hit every week with something that's either gone end of life or is not available, or we have to source it through a broker and ensure that it's correct. But these are real big issues for us and real big issues in the industry. We've feathered our bed with really locking in some key components, but it seems almost weekly, like I said, that we're running out of chips.
I'm Jim Alpizer with Garmin. We're here at AirVenture 2022 in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, enjoying another celebration of aviation. The booth has been jam-packed full of customers asking about major cockpit avionics upgrades, and we're here to do all kinds of demonstrations throughout the course of this week. One of the questions we've been getting is, what's the supply chain situation like for Garmin, and when might I be able to expect product deliveries? One of the things we've been doing is working with our suppliers and also working product redesigns to help with the supply chain challenges and issues. We've been making really good progress to that end, and we are starting to see lead times come down, but that doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't continue to plan ahead. And it really starts with planning your installation and making sure that you know exactly what you want for your aircraft, and then finding an installation slot at one of our partnering facilities. And that a lot of times is going to be the longer lead time issue that you have to deal with. The time that it takes to actually get it to a dealer to complete the installation, it can be several months, and by the time they get you slotted to come in with your aircraft for the installation, they can have the parts on order, and in a perfect world we'll have those parts becoming available just about the time that you can show up with their installation labor available. If not, a lot of these installation facilities will do a little bit of juggling around to fit you in once you've kind of gotten through initial lead time and scheduling constraints that they have as well. So again, my tip for you is to get out there early, figure out exactly what you want, and get those orders in as quickly as possible, and then things have been improving. And so just be patient, and we appreciate all the patience that so many customers have been offering us to date, and we're excited to continue to make these supply chain challenges diminish over time, and we'll stay focused to that end.
So clearly, not everybody has the same story, but everybody pretty much has a similar story. What's the takeaway for all this looking ahead?
Well, I think, as you said before, it's all about planning. If you're working on a project, you really have to build in extra time for components to arrive, order soon, order early, and it really raises a couple of interesting points. So, for example, on engines, in many cases, your warranty starts when you get the engine. We have seen a lot of price increases in addition to the inability to, or the extended delivery times for some engines. So it caused you to think, do I order now and sit on the engine for a bit of time, save myself some money, but start running the warranty clock? Or do I roll the dice and hope that they're going to have their supply chain issues ironed out and the price hasn't gone up too much by the time I need it? It's a difficult thing to really decide on your own. I personally would order the engine and sit on it. The nice thing is a lot of these things are fungible assets. If you decide to stop your project, you can always sell it to somebody else, but it's definitely worth getting ahead of the curve here.
To that point though, avionics may not be as easy as sourcing an engine and putting it aside. With avionics, you're worried about technology changing. So what may be current now may not be current 6 months from now, or 3 months from now, or certainly maybe not a year from now. So you're sort of gambling a little bit about the technology when you try to source avionics early. And that's something in the home built market that, you know, maybe you buy installation kits and wait for the boxes later, but it's a challenge.
Well, I think it is a challenge, and it does look like a lot of the suppliers are really trying to step up and solve their problems. But I think the important thing to understand is this is a slow-moving target. Nothing's going to happen quickly. And what I have heard, though, is a year ago, people were really impatient. What I'm hearing from people here at AirVenture is that the consumers are like, okay, I get it. This is going to be with us for a while, and kind of resetting their expectations. Still, get out ahead of the problem. Try to get your orders in early and really do your planning. You just can't guarantee yourself having something off the shelf.
True story. Well, that's not the end of the story, and we'll keep tabs on it. I'm sure we'll be reporting on it. And reporting from AirVenture 2022, I'm Larry Anglisano, Aviation Consumer, with Marc Cook at KITPLANES Magazine. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.